Hi there, welcome back. My name is Abby Flynn. I'm a broker associate with Ketchum Realty Group, and I have about 8 years of experience selling homes in the Tallahassee area. And today I want to talk to you about the common pitfalls that I hear buyers talk about after they've closed on their home. The one that's most common, that it really isn't an issue for me anymore because it's one of those things that I make sure that buyers have set up before we even see homes, and that's viewing homes without having your financing figured out. There's been times, and when I was a brand new agent, I showed this couple around to probably a dozen homes that were in the 250 price range. They were certain they could afford it. They had great incomes. But when it came time to write that offer, they finally reached out to their financing guy and they found out what their monthly payment was going to be. And they really weren't comfortable with it. And so we went back to the drawing board. We came up with a new number they were going to be more comfortable with the $175,000 range. And they really were not happy with the houses that were in their new price range as compared to the ones that they had seen before. So it was kind of like going out for steak and ending up eating hamburger. They just weren't happy, and it was a little hurt feelings, but it's something that could have been avoided had they figured their financing out before they ever hit those streets looking for that house. The next thing I hear a lot is that they broke the budget. They really loved that house in that higher price point. Maybe it was that $250,000 house. And they went for it. They were just planning on giving up those vacations. But once they got under contract, or once they got into the house and they were paying that monthly mortgage and they realized what a sacrifice that really was, that house really wasn't worth it to them in the long run. So if you're going to break your budget, just do so carefully. Just make sure that you're willing to make those sacrifices in order to make that house work. You don't want to be house rich, cash poor. Kind of is a stinky situation to live in. Been there, done that. The last thing that I hear a lot, and this is really for first-time home buyers, is that they didn't know they needed more than the down payment to buy a house. There is the down payment and there's also closing costs. Make sure that you budget for most. Generally, we can ask sellers for cover some of the closing costs, but in this competitive market situation, it's really in your best interest to be able to close on the house without asking the seller for help. The other thing that I'm going to talk about, and this one's kind of a personal one, is I did meet the neighbors. We moved into a kind of a cul-de-sac that had a really quiet neighborhood. Most of the neighbors were older, they didn't have young kids, and when we moved in there, we had 3 teenagers, and we had the house that had the pool, and we bought it because we did want to be the kind of the collection for all the neighborhood kids, much to our neighbors' dismay. I feel like if I had met with him up front and kind of had a feeling for who he was long before all those teenagers hit that cul-de-sac, we would have been in a better situation with him in a relationship. He was just really angry with us for a really long time, and it took a long time to kind of smooth those feelings out. If it would have been something that I could have solved long before we moved in, or at least long before we had a bunch of teenagers at the cul-de-sac making him mad and parking too close to his mailbox. So just meet the neighbors. That way you're more comfortable with knowing who they are and you can get off on the right foot. So the next thing I hear a lot about is the buyer feels that they didn't ask enough questions. And that could really be just about anything. What does the neighborhood look like at Saturday morning at 8 o'clock? What is traffic getting to work in the morning? We've had buyers that have canceled contracts because they didn't want to take a left-hand turn onto a busy road. These are all the kind of questions that will impact kind of your lifestyle in that house. Get those answers long before you go under your pending contract. So the next thing we hear a lot is we didn't get enough inspection. I'm going to go back to a young lady who bought her second house in the Tallahassee area. She was very cautious about it. She had gone under contract a couple times and then found that the house that she had put under contract didn't really meet her criteria. She really wanted something that was in great condition. So we finally found it. The house was being remodeled by contractors. They kind of raised some questions in my head right away. They had moved a sink from one side of the kitchen to the other and they hadn't pulled a permit. And when I called the county said, yeah, that really needs a permit. But when we got the home inspection, one of the things the home inspector said that he had a corner of the garage that he really wasn't sure about. He's not a foundation expert. He really recommended us getting a second inspection with a foundation expert to give their professional opinion. The buyer decided they had had everything else. We had gotten a new air conditioning, we had gotten a new roof, we had gotten a lot of things from the seller already. They weren't ready to push any more buttons. They were just going to live with whatever it was. We went to closing. They closed 6 months later. I called to check on them and they told me that in that corner of the garage had started to sink and they found out that the foundation underneath it was clay, and they now have a $6,500 repair. She wished that she had gotten that additional inspection. Not that it probably would have changed her mind, because she loved the location and the house and everything else, but at least she would have been better prepared for that $6,500 bill to fix that foundation. The next one I want to talk about is the lacking the vision for the repairs or any remodel. I worked with a couple that looked, and they had very specific tastes. They really wanted to be in one of 3 neighborhoods, and they wanted the house to be all 1 level, no 2 levels, and that neighborhoods had a lot of second levels houses. The house, we saw a couple of them, one in particular they really absolutely loved, and the problem with it was it had really old flooring. They had dogs. I totally get it. I wouldn't want to have carpet with all my dogs either. But they moved on. They thought they'd find another house, but they kept daydreaming about that one. They came back and said, even after they bought another house they really liked, they really wish they had bought that first house and been able just to negotiate the floors or get a price where they could replace the floors. So the next one is kind of the opposite of that, is overlooking big flaws. And your inspector is going to be able to only inspect things that he can see. He's not going to punch holes in the drywall to see what's behind the drywall. He's not going to move boxes to see what's behind the boxes. And there are things that we can do to kind of protect you. For example, we had a house that sold in the country that had a termite issue. It was a wood framed house, and we all had a kind of funky feeling about that master bathroom. They had had issues with it before. They had a termite bond on it. We ended up with 2 termite inspections on it. And in the end, we negotiated the bond, which was a really good thing, because when they opened up that master bathroom wall, it was full of termites and termite damage. It was an expense that they didn't have to pay because we did have a bond on it, and they were really happy about that. So don't overlook big flaws. Make sure that you prepare for them. It doesn't need to be a deal breaker. It's just something you want to know going into the whole process. Last one, in this market, it is a really strong seller's market. Things are flying off the market if they are appropriately priced. So there have been times where I've shown houses on Friday, and then the buyer wants to think about it overnight. It's a big decision. I totally get it. But when they come back to me Saturday afternoon, the seller already has multiple offers and has already accepted one. So if you wait in this market, you may not sleep in it. So if you have any questions about buying or selling a home in Tallahassee, I am happy to help. There's lots of other videos here. There's lots of information on our web page, and you can contact me through Instant Messenger, through fax, well, wait, I don't have a fax, but Instant Messenger, cell phone, or many other ways. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, and have a great day.